All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of All Things MSP. Uh, All Things MSP Live, actually. We do these live streams just about every Wednesday night so that we just get some people on here and have a chat. It's kind of the informal thing that we do. If you know, we do a podcast now that comes out every Tuesday. We do office hours. In fact, we're going to be recording an office hours for channel program and their new product Navistack. So you should see that next week. And we like to bring the community together and talk about all the things that matter to the MSP community. Now, tonight, in case you haven't noticed yet, I do have a bit of a head cold. I was at ChannelCon last week, and of course, around a lot of people. Wasn't feeling bad while I was there. It must have been, the cooped up on an airplane air that kind of did me in after a couple of late nights last week. So it is not COVID. I did test, but if I need to mute myself to cough once or twice during tonight's show, you'll understand why. Now, my guest tonight is no stranger to the MSP community. He has, done a lot of stuff to really promote this industry and educate this community. And that's what we're going to be talking about a lot tonight, is the importance of education. Now, we do have a couple of regular players here in the comments tonight. Degley's here. So Degley says, "Hey, Eric, so good to see you last week at ChannelCon." Yes, Degley. And by the way, thank you very much for the scones. They were amazing and definitely made my breakfast. I think it was on Wednesday morning. So definitely appreciate that. And then, of course, we have the OG. We have Keith J. Nelson, PhD, in the house. And Keith says, cigars prevent COVID. And Keith, I'll take your word for it. Cigars are one of those things I just never got into. I love the smell of cigars. In fact, I have a quick story that I'll tell about, because, smoking in restaurants not normally an okay thing, right? But we have a restaurant here in Raleigh called the Angus Barn. And they actually have a section of the restaurant called the Meat Locker. And it used to be the old meat locker in the restaurant. And they allow smoking in there. And I was amazed one night. We took some clients there. And it really was interesting. You know how wine or alcoholic drinks can change the flavor of food and enhance the flavor of food, right? Well, there were some people smoking some really good cigars there in the room. And it was interesting to me how, to me, it actually improved the taste of my steak. It enhanced the flavor. I don't know how that happened. It's just an interesting story, and I like to tell it from time to time. So with that, because I don't want to spend all this time talking about, ChannelCon and smoking cigars. I want to bring on my guest, and my guest tonight is he's the VP of Academy at Pax8, and he is the founder of C-Level Operations. You guys know him best as Rex Frank. Hey, Rex.
Welcome to Academy Live. Oh, wait, wrong show. Sorry.
See, you got me on the first one. How are you tonight, Rex?
Oh, well, I'm nursing the end of the same head cold, I think. I wasn't at ChannelCon, total FOMO for not being there, but I did pick it up somewhere along the line. I was at the National Scout Jamboree, so we took about 60 people from the Seattle contingent down to West Virginia and hung out with 15,000 of our closest friends. And yeah, this is what I'm dealing with almost a week and a half later. So
yeah, it's weird how that happens, right? And I don't know what it is about Vegas in particular. I always come home sick from Vegas. And I don't get in trouble. Like, I don't stay out late. I don't drink a lot. I don't go to, sketchy places. So I don't know what it is.
I get that. My son-in-law is a police officer down there, so I get to hear a lot of interesting stories. But hey, Keith, good to see you. I didn't get to go to ChannelCon this year, but I'm sure we'll catch up at an event soon. Keith and I go way back. It's probably been at least 25 years. So
yeah. I mean, uh, it is really great to be in this industry at this point where there are more than a handful of us, right, who have been in this and in this community for decades now, multiple decades. Uh, so I really
30,
do,
1988, 35 years for me.
yeah. So, I mean, officially, I call my start date 1992 because that's when I started my first break fix company. But technically, you can go about 6 years earlier because I did actually have business cards back when I was 15 years old and was doing computer consulting, and my mom had to drive me to appointments.
I would count that. I absolutely would count that.
It depends on who I'm talking to.
Yeah,
So,
1988, got hired as an entry level tech. I took it, got basic in Pascal on the Apple IIs in high school,
yep,
right? But um, yeah, I was working on Kpro CPM machines with a guy named Ole Thorderson in SoCal. It's now called All Networks. Man, I was there 19 years. He gave me so much opportunity to grow and mature from a tech to spending a little bit of time in account management, but really taking over that service department. And he was involved in TPG, the True Profits Group. That was back in one of the early peer groups in the 90s that like Arnie Bellini from ConnectWise and Gary Pica and that crew, Arlen from HTG, they were all in that peer group together. And I really felt like I was working on an island as a service manager, not really having much context with what's going on in the industry. And those guys were trying to figure out what managed services was, and they were having these great ideas about how to build managed services, and they'd go back to their businesses and try to implement it through their service managers, and they were having varying degrees of success. And Steve Bowser, the guy that ran True Profits, had this idea: hey, what if I facilitate you guys and then facilitate a group of your service managers, right? And then they can work together to implement the same thing we're trying to implement as owners. And so 2004 kicked off that service exec peer group, and man, definitely like a strategic inflection point in my career, in a positive way, right? That's where I just started learning how to be held accountable to very specific financial metrics and sharing best practices and setting strategic goals and working on those strategic goals. They're, translating those to tactical goals for each person. And it was really interesting. I was way more concerned of reporting back to my peer group that I didn't achieve something than I was ever dealing with Oli, my boss. Right? Like the accountability in that peer group was huge, and I think it really helped lead us to be a pioneer in that managed services space um, and be pretty successful. 30 or 20 years, 19 years there.
yeah. Well, and a great group, right? Alvaca Network's just an incredible group of people. Have known several of them throughout the years. In fact, uh, uh, I think it was David Cunningham was at ChannelCon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So got to talk to him for quite a bit. So before we get just rambling into all of these interesting topics, um, why don't you give me a little bit more background on because that's early years, right? What got you into the partner enablement and the education piece of it?
It's interesting. My first name is Steven. My middle name is Rex. And I was writing an article for a thing called Stacks the Network Journal about how to use ManageWise to do network remote managed services. And I was getting published, and I thought, I'm going to publish under Rex, my middle name, because it's more unique. And I've been Rex ever since, which is kind of interesting. And people at work started calling me Rex. But then, you know, that that led to me wanting to be out in the community, right? And I started reaching out to people that put on events. Can I be on a panel to help talk about how we're transitioning to managed services? And that just kind of helped grow my own personal brand in the industry. And then, I got active in the ConnectWise user group communities. They had me as a partner, speaking at IT Nation and going to different events. And I got fairly active in the HTG community, and it was a real common thing for people to start asking me, "Hey, can you work with the service manager that I have to help them learn how to run the service departments profitably and efficiently like you do?" And I did that a few times, under the company I was working for. And ultimately, in 2010, I decided that there was a hole in the industry to help technicians promoted to service managers learn how to stop being a tech and start being a service executive. And that's why I created C-level operations. And I spent the first year with just a handful of clients, and spent most of my time creating this thing that I ultimately called the ops guide. But I was just brain dumping everything I knew about how to run one of these companies, and broke it into 10 different categories. It came up with about 85 different operational objectives that everybody needs to work on in their business. I went to IT Nation and gave a talk as a partner. At C-level, we used ConnectWise Manage internally, but I gave a talk about just really what are these 85 different things you got to work on in your business. And next thing I know, I got a line of people wanting to sign up, and I had to hire a person a year later. It was Ken Sponsler. A year later, Chris Butler joined C-level, and then HTG had us start participating, as a subject matter expert in their owner peer groups, and we took a big role in their service exec peer groups, and that gets us up to 2020, where we had about 20 employees at C-level.
Wow.
It's kind of like, wow. There just seemed to be a big demand, and we were having a lot of success. It was interesting. I kind of set the bar high to be a client. It was an interesting sales methodology. It was, hey, don't sign up if you're not going to commit 10% of your time, 4 hours a week, right?
Yep.
An hour with your coach and 3 hours of homework to work on your business. Don't sign up unless you're ready to commit that. And I actually put some barriers in the sales process. Like we wouldn't call back after an initial meeting. We'd wait for the prospect to reach back out, because what I found is if we pushed at all to just sign up, just try it, you'll love it, right? Whatever. They wouldn't come to the meetings prepared. They wouldn't do their homework. They didn't
Yep.
have a great experience. And and if you asked them, would you refer C-level, they'd be our detractors. But if I put some barriers in the sales process that they had to jump over, and really only engaged with the ones that jumped over, well, that's the same group that shows up to every meeting. They do their homework, they engage, they get the benefit out of using the program, and there are promoters. And that's why we had a 95 net promoter score,
Yep. And
administered by KLA. Like, we didn't even administer it and got a 95. Um, I
yeah,
love that.
that's really important, right? Because I mean, you and I do a lot of educational stuff out here in the industry. I lean a little bit more towards the sales and marketing stuff, but um, we talk often about limiting the people that you take on as clients, and for your purposes, putting those barriers there, making sure you're only getting people who are actually committed is better for your business. It's kind of the same with an MSP, where they really need to be looking for clients who want to convert to the way that the MSP wants to run their IT and is going to be aligned with that.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up in this talk, is that understanding your target client profile and staying within it, maybe being a little bit smaller company, but from a revenue perspective, but having way better profitability, a referral machine that just becomes amazing. I think is more important, and
Yeah.
then you'll grow your business actually faster in the long run by
Yeah.
going slow and smooth in the beginning, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I really believe that. Um, so the Pax8 thing, what happened as COVID kind of got kicked off at the end of 19 and in 2020, Craig Donovan, my boss at Pax8, he was kind of asking Pax8's fastest growing partners, like, hey, what are you guys doing to grow so fast? And working with C-level was a real common denominator. So I get this phone call from Craig Donovan and Nick Hetty, end of 2020 and October of 2020. And basically it started off a conversation about partnering with us, but by the end of that phone call, it was clear they wanted to do an acquisition. They wanted more of that.
Yep.
And May 1st of 21, C-level operations became, really the foundation for Pax8 Academy. And for the Southwesterners out there, my leadership team always heard me talking about In-N-Out Burger. Like, no, we're not going to do sales. We're not going to do instructor-led courses. We're not going to do peer groups. We're going to stay focused on one-on-one coaching with service executives and finance leaders and, some owner coaching, but it's one-on-one coaching. So we got to Pax8 and it was an interesting thing. And I knew this, through the negotiation process, but it wasn't, you're going to do one-on-one coaching. It's, Pax8 Academy needs to meet every partner where they are, which is one of these, 4 defined maturity levels, which are pretty standardized in the industry. From the one person shop, in that first maturity level, it's kind of everybody reports to the owner. The second maturity level, it's sort of there's an owner and a service manager. The rule of 7, right? No manager should have more than 7 direct reports is kind of the guiding factor here. But so they can get up to about 15-ish employees in that second maturity stage. And then that third stage, they've got more of a leadership team, right? There's somebody from admin, somebody from finance, somebody from sales, maybe a couple people from service, and the owner form a leadership team that run the company. Which gets you, somewhere around 50 employees or something like that. And then there's the hyperscalers, right? The ones that are
Right.
out there with funding, doing acquisitions and a lot of mergers and that kind of stuff. So, but it's meet every partner where they are with which maturity level are they in. And it's a whole different set of content for each one of those with what they want to learn, which we define as all this how to grow and mature and run your business content that came from C-level. But it's also, there's 80, 90 vendors on the line card, something like that. And we need to educate our partners on why they would use one of those tools and how they would implement it into the way they do business. But we also, if it's a tool in their solution stack, we need to educate their engineers how to use the tool to support the client base, right? So we got this kind of 3-prong approach on what they want to learn. And then we use in the way they want to learn, which we kind of break out as, and I use this gym membership analogy where you can go to the gym and just use the machines, right? That's free. You can just use the machines. I'm frozen. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
can
still have
hear you,
internet,
but
so
I'm
I'm just
frozen.
gonna keep
Well, there we
talking.
go. Yeah.
Okay. I got a continuous ping running. That's my old tech days. But so anyway, it's like using the gym. You can just go use the machines, never interact with a person, come and go, and we try to keep that all free. I'm just going to assume that I'm still alive. So you can take an instructor-led course, right? You could take a yoga class or a spin class, and we've got instructor-led courses out there. You can find them at pax8.com/academy. I think we have 22 courses out there in broken up into 4 groups: security, the building your business, the technical stuff. It's a lot of Microsoft stuff right now around the tech side, and team like service manager, project management, that kind of stuff. We've also got the one-on-one coaching, right? So you can go get the personal trainer and do the one-on-one coaching. So that's still out there. I got to tell you, I'm incredibly proud that we're almost 2.5 years post-acquisition, and everybody that came from C-level is still with Pax8. So
That's unusual.
that's over 20 people. So that's what I'm excited about. We got the peer groups, right? And the way I make the analogy tie into the peer groups is a couple of years ago, I got involved with a kids cancer charity and we climbed Mount Rainier. And if you don't know what it is, it's 14,400 feet of glaciers and ice axes and ropes. And it's kind of a thing. But I was in no condition to do that, right? So group that was climbing together met every Saturday morning to go climb some mountain somewhere, right? And what are the chances if I'm going by myself and my alarm goes off at 4:30 Saturday morning, I'm getting up, right? It's probably a hard no. But I know that there's a group waiting for me. And as we're doing this training hike, inevitably one of us is going to be like, I'm not really feeling it today. I'm just going to go ahead and I'll see you guys next week. But the group doesn't let you do that, right? They're like,
Right.
no, we're almost, we're halfway there. You got this. And next thing you know, we're all standing on top of a mountain, right? And when it came to actually climbing the summit, right, that same peer group helped each other, and we all got up there to the summit. And I think that's what's really important for the peer groups, and it's kind of the same thing. And we started. I think we had 3 peer groups 2 years ago, and we're at 27 peer groups now. So, and they're not just owner groups; they're service exec groups. We've got a peer group for dispatchers. We got peer groups for project managers, back office billing folks, security professionals. Right. So we're trying to find those areas in the MSP where there's individuals that feel like they're on an island and don't really have anybody to talk to, and put them together in groups that are facilitated. So those are going great too.
And accountability is such a huge thing in our industry, because one of the things as technicians turned business people that we are not good at is accountability. So, it's one of those things that just meets us again, like you were saying, it meets us where we're at. For a lot of us who are technicians, and hopefully this picks up right where we left off. Like I said in the beginning, I mean, I do all the things, right? I reboot my computer, I reboot my modem and my router. I do all the things before we start one of these shows. And sometimes, and I think it's Restream is, I don't know if they're just getting to capacity, if live streaming has become that popular. I don't know. I might have to look at another solution.
Did you open a ticket?
No, because I'm talking to you.
There you go.
But that takes us back to the accountability piece, right? Where you have to build that accountability into your business in order to have the controls that you were talking about earlier. And the video is freezing again. So
I'll take a second. Say, Oli. I see him in the chat. Good to see you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in there. I do have 1 or 2 things running in the background here. I don't think it's my computer, because last week it was kind of the same situation. It just worked itself out. So technology, it's a wonderful thing. Like, I'm hardwired. I don't do this over Wi-Fi. I know better.
Well, we need to call the guy, because once you call the guy, it just works perfectly.
That's true.
So
the question is, who's the guy? Because I doubt that Restream has live tech support for, the, I don't know, $30-$40 a month I pay for Restream. But
how many? What's the average number of techs an MSP has to have to solve a problem?
I don't know how many.
It's only 1, but most of us haven't hired one yet.
Yeah, so that conversation came up on the podcast last week. In terms of what we were talking about. We were talking about your first hire as an MSP, and whether it should be an admin or a tech. And I don't want to go down that path, because we have other things to talk about tonight, in spite of all these issues. So let's talk a little bit more about Pax8 and partner success and the Academy. What is kind of the overarching goal of Pax8 when it comes to the Academy?
Well, I think the important thing to get across is I am not measured as a profit center within Pax8. I am asked to kind of hold my own and not be a drain on Pax8, but Academy generates really just enough revenue to stay pretty close to break even. And the general way we do that is I want all that on-demand content to remain free for all Pax8 partners, right? But it takes quite a bit of cost to get subject matter experts to create that content so we can put it out there for free. I try to run the peer groups with as little cost as possible. So we run that pretty close to break even. I run the instructor-led courses with as little cost as possible and run it, partner cost as possible to try to run it pretty close to break even. We do make some margin out of the coaching, but I use that margin to pay for all the free stuff that we put out there. And that works out really well. The way I'm measured, or all of Academy is measured at Pax8, is when a partner engages with Pax8, and I love the way David Shaffron on my team says this, it's like we cause the partners to need to buy more licenses from Pax8, right? If we help them grow their business or help them understand the product better or help them mature the way they're using their tools, they should be able to grow and get more clients and be qualified to have larger clients. And when they do that, they need to buy more licenses from Pax8. So I'm measured, then that's all the reporting we do out of our platform, out of the marketplace, is they're buying this much before they engage with Academy. They have an engagement and then they start buying more. And right now Pax8 is showing about twice the margin per partner that engages with Academy.
Yeah, and that's the real thing, right? Is as vendors in this space, the ones who get it, get it. I mean, I've known since I started as a vendor in this space, and it's been almost 10 years now since I sold my MSP and switched to the dark side. Those vendors who educate tend to increase license count with those cohorts that go through their training, whether it's technical training, business training, whatever kind of training it is. They tend to increase and statistically be higher consumers of that vendor's product than the ones who don't participate in that partner engagement and partner enablement.
Oh yeah, and it's proving itself out every time we look at the data, just within Pax8. And on that note, I'd like to call something out. I got some news last week that last year when the Channel Pro Readers' Choice Awards came out, Pax8 had taken silver, right? And I got for Best Distributor Education Program. And I thought, wow, I didn't really even know that was out there. And I went and looked at the year before, and we weren't even on the page, right? It was Ingram, Tech Data, and then Synex. So one year ago, Pax8 came on the page in the number 2 spot. So it was Ingram, Pax8, and then the TD Synex combo, after that merger. And I set a goal with my team that I didn't think there was any reason Pax8 couldn't take home the gold. And last week, I saw the Channel Pro Readers' Choice Awards were announced, and we're sitting on top in the gold spot. So thank you to all the Channel Pro readers that made that vote. So thank you.
Yep. And if you don't know of Channel Pro, look them up. They do a lot of great shows around the country, to help, educational wise, as well as, getting vendors, out in front of you as well. So definitely, Joel and the guys over there and the ladies too, Colleen and all those folks definitely really do their part as part of the media to move this industry forward. So speaking of events, you guys had your first big event this year, Pax8 Beyond. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there, but I heard great things.
Oh my gosh. We started planning it pre-COVID. It had a different name when it first was being planned, but it got canceled because of COVID. But we still had the contracts with the Gaylord, so we will be there for 3 more years. Or 2 more years at least. But
great venue anyway.
Yeah. Oh man, it was an awesome venue. And we, I remember Jen Bodell was saying this has to be a different kind of event, right? And I remember being in one of those early meetings, and I said, if you want this to be a different event, let's not make it about vendors. Let's make it about education, where the vendors help support the delivery of what we're teaching. And there was a little skepticism at first. Even Rob Ray was a little skeptical, but we worked together. Actually, he came in a little later. We were a little bit later in the planning stages, but um, I knew that if we made this an educational event, it would be different. And it, I I sort of was almost sorry I got what I asked for, right? Because next thing I know, Academy's on the hook for delivering 23 of the 26 sessions, right? So, and that's deck develop, concept development, deck development, uh, working with marketing to get that out, getting the right people to present on the different topics. But it was a lot of work. It was very well managed and very well orchestrated. Thank goodness or thank the channel company for helping us, put the event together so that we could come off as professional. And man, the comments were outstanding.
Yes. The feedback that I've heard, just among my peer group, has been amazing. From different MSPs that I talk to all the time, they really enjoyed it and they appreciated the educational focus. And they said that the sessions were really, really good. It's not just that they appreciate that you attempted to do an educational focus. You pulled it off.
Yeah, I mean the average across all the sessions was like a 9.5 out of 10. And that's sort of unheard of as well. A ton of positive comments. We had a couple of audio issues, and we had a couple of comments and markdowns on our scores that maybe the maturity level of the content didn't match their maturity level. We did our best to kind of do that, and we broke the sessions into 5 personas, right? We owners, finance and admin, service managers, sales, engineers. We had a security track. So there was a track for each of those personas with a set of offerings, and I think it worked really, really well. And that's the feedback we're hearing.
Well, that's great. And
the product announcements and the announcements on stage and the all vendor sessions that we had, they all got extremely high marks as well. And the production quality was off the hook.
well, Pax8's always been known for their production quality, right? I think Pax8, in my opinion, is one of those companies that came in and from the beginning just kind of did things right. They treated partners right. They understood how partners wanted to buy and really created, a place where partners could come in and purchase from some of these companies that they weren't able to purchase from before.
There's been a couple of keys to that success. Number one is, the founders of Pax8 had a company before called MX Logic, right? Which was a 100% channel focused company. And they were very early into the Ingram seismic program. And so, they were a SaaS company trying to sell through Ingram. And, John Street specifically was pretty unhappy with, the services as a vendor he was receiving from the Ingram seismic program. And after, the acquisition by McAfee and taking a little time off and deciding what he wanted to do next, that's when he's like, distribution is broken when it comes to SaaS. And that's why he founded Pax8. And there was some hard years. There were some lean years. There was some times where there, wasn't great vendors on the line card necessarily. But we got the Microsoft going. And, that was through a partnership with Arrow. Not everybody knows that. But ultimately broke away from Arrow and just continued to grow. And the things kind of turned into a rocket ship.
Yep.
We had about 800 employees in May of 21 when I joined the company, and we're over 1,600 now.
So kind of going back to, you talked about, there's stuff available for people who are just partners. All they have to do is sign up and be a partner. There are some paid engagements that people can get involved with, and there are peer groups. So how does somebody get involved with like one of the peer groups?
Well, you do have to be a Pax8 partner. And man, if you just signed into the platform and go to the question mark and click on learning resources, or sorry, not the platform, it's the marketplace, right? But go into the marketplace. With the new marketplace that we got a preview of at Beyond Academy, it will be way more integrated. The but or you can go to the website and it'll direct you there, or academy.pax8.com will get you straight there. And there's somewhere around 200 courses that you can just take. It's all free. It's all organized by person, by your role at the company. It's organized by one of the 4 maturity levels. There's just so many different ways you can navigate, or journeys you could take to find all that free content out there. If you're interested in any of the instructor-led courses, you can find those at pax8.com/academy, as it's on the screen. I think we have 20 courses out there, 22 courses out there now. Some of my favorites are the service manager course. That's geared toward that person moving into the service manager role. The MSP employee onboarding course is kind of taken off like wildfire. It's all those things you need to teach an employee about how to be an MSP. That my team of coaches put together into that course, and we're hearing just amazing feedback on that. But there's a lot of stuff out there: contracts, jumpstarting an M365 practice, jumpstarting there's 3 different Azure practice courses. And those are all available in the marketplace. You can just grab those courses and sign up for them. We try to start most of them every month, and they run somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks. An hour or 2 a week. The peer groups, though, it's probably best to talk to your CAM, your channel account manager. They'll get you connected with our what we call our OSCs, our operations solution consultants, and they'll get you in the right, talking to the right people to decide which group or groups would be best for you. I saw that there's a chat from a Facebook user that said he now has 4 people in his company in 4 different groups. I'm assuming one in the project manager group, one in the dispatcher group, one in the service manager group, kind of thing. And he's saying it helped his business exponentially. So that's pretty exciting to see.
Well, and that's the benefit of having somebody like Pax8 behind it, right? Is you can create these different peer groups that are specifically tailored to different roles in the organization, right? And that's I would believe hugely important to the effectiveness of those peer groups.
Yeah, and they're facilitated by experts in that industry, or in that group, right? Like Amanda Glidden has been with C-Level and then Academy for 7 or 8 years, and she was a dispatcher for a 50+ person MSP prior to coming to C-Level, and she's a facilitator of that peer group, right? So, and while we try to steer the conversation or provide guidance, and try to stick more to the facilitator role, it's nice to know that guidance is there, that experience is there to help steer those conversations.
Right. And facilitation is a job in and of itself. So being facilitator and coach can sometimes be a daunting task. So you've built some great things at Pax8. Now, I love the way you talked about it earlier, because earlier on at the very beginning of the show, you were talking about, how that's not how you did C-Level, but with Pax8, it needed to be different because Pax8, it needs to scale, right?
Right.
You're dealing with a wider range of maturity levels in the partners that Pax8 caters to. And there's just a lot that, you have to be able to scale in order to meet all of the partners. And again, it needs to work at scale. So I think it's great the way that you've put this together and modified the education and all of the processes that you did at C-Level, and now we're able to deliver those at a greater scale through Pax8. Has there been any struggles with that, or what what's really kind of been the thing that got you over that hurdle of going from one-on-one coaching to scaling?
We had to develop a new KPI. It was percentage of coaches' time being used in the other three areas of academy, right? And at first it was like, can we get 3% of their time to not do coaching and work on building an instructor-led course or a self-service course or something like that, right? Because we needed their subject matter expertise, and that's an expensive endeavor, right? To take somebody who's billing, several $100s an hour to do coaching and say, no, we don't want you to do that right now. We want you to do this. And, it's actually a win. I've seen numbers, quarters where 10% of our coaches' time is going toward building those courses and stuff. And, where we were only asking for 3. So it's been exciting to see the coaches kind of embrace the fact that, the smaller companies don't have time or money to invest in an academy, leveraging an academy resource. So we need to give them something that they can use on their own time, without necessarily the expense involved with an academy resource getting involved with them. So, we need to nurture there. And by the way, our larger companies are using that same resource for, when they hire a new employee, right? We're seeing that. And we've seen over 2,000 unique companies now engaging in the free on-demand content. And every time we look at those graphs, like every usage graph is kind of got that exponential increase in usage. And so on-demand is where we can scale the most. Instructor-led, it would be second, right? Because we try to run courses with up to about 20 people so they can still have interaction time with that live instructor. Peer groups, we got to have a facilitator for every 8 to 10 companies, and coaching, we have to have a person for, a coach can handle about 24 concurrent companies, 24 calls a week kind of thing. So, that's where the biggest scale problem is for sure. And it takes 6 months. It's kind of cool with a coach because, we hire them because they're sort of operational hotshots, right? They've got some industry, they've got some credibility, and they just want to start servicing clients. We're like, hey, hold on there, cowboy. We've got some content we need you to learn, and we need you to learn how we do the coaching, right? What our coaching methodology is. And it's about 6 months of studying material and shadowing other coaches and calls before we start to turn them loose. So that's quite an investment we're making in a coach. And it's kind of funny. They all just want a client. Give me some revenue. I want to service some revenue. And then we start engaging them in the process. And about 3 or 4 months in, we're like, so you think you're ready? And they're like, nope. And then we have to start encouraging. Yeah, you can do this. And then next thing you know, they're off just killing it with the partners.
Yep. All right. So I think based on the bad internet and stuff, we're probably going to cut it off pretty quickly. I did want to recognize that one of the Facebook users that is still watching is Mr. Keith Nelson, because he and I did have a conversation about KPIs earlier this week, and how KPIs for an MSP, for what I think is a true MSP, your KPIs should be fully aligned with your client's KPIs, right? Because, a good MSP, takes care of the IT stuff. A better MSP, contributes to cost efficiencies and reduce expenses and stuff like that. And a great MSP actually contributes to revenue as well. So, a lot of great things to talk about. And Rex, I apologize for the live stream being glitchy tonight. The last time this happened, it was definitely a restream error because they send me a report after every one. And who knows, maybe it has something to do with the infrastructure issues that we had with the power and everything earlier this week here in North Carolina. They do. I am supposed to, in the next 6 months, maybe have fiber available to me. And as soon as that's available, I've already pre-signed up for it. That's how close it is. So as soon as it gets here, I'm going to be signing up for that. So one more time, how do people get connected to Pax8 and be able to access all of this great stuff that you guys are doing?
Well, before I get to that, can I just give
Okay.
some thoughts on the KPI
Sure, sure.
discussion? Okay. Um, the first thing on KPIs is they change dramatically depending on your maturity level. That everybody reports to the owner company. There really aren't any KPIs, and I would argue they're not needed because the owner's close enough to all the day-to-day interaction that their gut feeling is very, very accurate, right? Um, and I would even argue that through that second stage, you can run the company very well without doing well with KPIs because between the owner and the service exec, well, I might say service manager at this point, but they're still very connected to all the day-to-day interaction, that their guts are still accurate. But that's when we want to be able to get KPIs, and we're trying to measure them, and we try to run reports, and our data, we find out our data in our PSA and our RMM is junk. And it's because we don't have standard processes and procedures. So that whole second stage is all about working on standardizing process and procedure so that we can get good data, so that we can get good KPIs. And I kind of postulate we're at the end of the second stage when we look at our dashboards and they match what our gut already knows, right? Um, and so the interesting thing there, what I think is important is, are people following our new processes? And I would do comp plans around, are people entering 8 hours a time? Are they changing the status of their tickets? Are they, right? And it's the stuff we just would expect them to do, but I would actually do bonuses around, are they following the process? Because that enables us as we go into that third stage, where when you have that leadership team, the owner's too far removed from all the day-to-day interaction, that their gut becomes very inaccurate and we're dependent on those KPIs. So maybe in a stage 2, I'm giving a bonus because they're entering 8 hours, but I have a 58% utilization, right? Which is terrible. But I'm happy that now I know it's an accurate number, right?
Right.
And as we move into that third stage, I'm working to, now we have accurate data, I'm working on moving that to 75% utilization, or tying a bonus plan to agreement profitability or something like that, that we couldn't even measure before if we didn't have accurate data because we were following standard processes. So in my opinion, what you measure as a KPI changes at each of those maturity levels. So, and one of the ones probably a late second or early stage 3 that has to do with matching it with your partners is, it's funny, if you talk to a professional services company, they'll adamantly yell at the top of their lungs that a good professional services program will drive new managed services revenue. But if you talk to a company that's predominantly managed services, they'll equally yell at the top of their lungs that a good managed services program will drive professional services revenue, right? And they're both right for the predominant business model that they're in. But I'll tell you, if you're in that managed services predominant business model, a good KPI to measure is your business review process producing projects that are equal about 20% of your managed revenue, right? So if you have $100,000 a month in managed revenue, you should be getting about $20,000 a month in projects, because your business reviews create an IT alignment that justify the projects.
Right. And you're not finding something just to sell it to them. You're finding something that they actually need, and that is going to help them in the long run. So those are projects that don't just, um, add to the MSP's bottom line. They actually help the client as well. And that's why you do those business reviews, because things change in their business, right? And
Yep.
as things change, projects and additional services are going to come up that need to be addressed by the MSP.
Yeah, and if you find out that you're losing a client because of the termination notice, you completely failed in your business review process, right? Like,
Absolutely.
like you probably should be getting that notice.
Well, it's kind of like employee reviews, right? No employee review should ever be a surprise. It's the same
Agreed.
thing with business reviews with clients. You should always go in having a good idea because you just had one either last month or last quarter. And so you should know the temperament. You should know what's going on. And if you don't have those business reviews, you won't know. And you won't know that there's this gap being created between you and the client that is going to eventually cause them to churn.
Yep. So I totally agree. So to get a hold of Pax8 or Pax8 Academy, pax8.com, you can sign up as a new partner right there. If you're not already a partner, it's free. And then that will, once you get your login credentials, that'll get you full access to the Academy, all of Academy on Demand. You'll be able to sign up for instructor-led courses. One of the key KPIs I love to track within Pax8 and for Academy is, how much margin are we getting from partners where their first interaction with Pax8 was an Academy SKU. So that's something I love to point out to the execs at Pax8.
Yeah, and something that I bet and completely deservedly you're very proud of. So,
Very
all
cool.
right. We're so you and I both travel quite a bit, although I'm not traveling quite as much this year. Are you going to be at an event coming up?
Probably ConnectWise IT Nation Connect is the next event I'm actually scheduled for. So we'll see.
Okay.
I may jump in last minute to Exchange or something. We'll see.
Okay. I will be at Exchange in Nashville in a couple of weeks. That's at the Gaylord in in Nashville. Speaking of Gaylord hotels, and yeah. Other than that, again, guys, apologies for the live stream tonight. We will work on the technology piece because that's what we do. Thanks very much, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thanks, Rex.
Thanks, everyone.